And finally, it is Centrelink news. You know, talking about the news, it is rare that I get to deliver good news. Because news, by its nature, is drawn towards disasters, scandals, and lists of 20 cats that look like Hitler, especially in this age of clickbait and outrage farming. So it is my genuine pleasure to announce about 3 million Australians who were affected by Centrelink's unlawful debt calculation are set to be eligible for up to $600 in compensation. A life-changing amount of money if you lived in 1983. Honestly, this wouldn't even buy a house if you were a Lego minifigure. The announcement came after the federal government admitted the use of income appropriation to determine welfare payments was invalid. Yes, I believe their exact words were, "Hey, don't spend it all at once, because if you do, we'll just invent another calculator and take it all back from you." Income appropriation, if you're not sure, it's the same kind of debt calculation that was used to calculate the debts that made up robo-debt, which was determined to be unlawful. But don't worry, they've upgraded. Instead of fake maths, they're using, wait for it, genuine fucking maths. It's revolutionary. Forget AI and quantum computing or blockchain. The future is numbers being used correctly by a person. Next year, they might even trial basic human empathy, although Treasury has costed that at $47 billion over 4 years, so don't hold your breath. The Social Services Minister, Tanya Plibersek, announced the government would also raise the threshold for small accidental deaths for the first time in 30 years, which is also very exciting. It's like getting some sprinkles on top of your ice cream, you know? If they keep this up, then we'll become accustomed to receiving treats. And what's the word? Basic human dignity. Oh, man, which, like, basic human dignity hasn't been raised for longer than 30 years, so, like, we're being spoiled this month. Alright, so what's new? What's the threshold? What's the new threshold? It must be something significant to warrant all this media hullabaloo. The threshold, let's see, let's have a look here. It's going to go up from $200 all the way up to $250. Yay! Yay! Now look, that's not to disparage what they're doing, because for this change, it does mean about 1.2 million debts are expected to be waived, or not even raised in the first place this financial year, and that's great. That really is great. But $200, 30 years ago, is the equivalent of purchasing power about $460 in 2025 dollars, or to put it in the common parlance, about a dozen eggs and a litre of milk. If you happen to already have some flour, maybe you can make yourself a cake to celebrate. No sprinkles though, because that will push you over the budget. So really, they've given us half? Less than half of what we used to get. Like, they're just, like, it looks nice, but if they really wanted to push us up, they'd have to have jumped us up to about $460 in equivalent value. This is like saying, hey, mate, I know you ordered a pizza with extra toppings, but here's the box and some crusts and the memory of a topping. Bon appetit! Income appropriation was the method that was used for decades, but it was ruled unlawful, placing a question mark over more than $1 billion in debt owed by welfare recipients stretching back to the late 1970s. However, the federal court's July ruling confirmed the debt has been used to make calculations since 2020 is considered valid. So don't even go thinking there will be more of this forgiveness going around, certainly not. This is as far as the government budget can stretch the budget for empathy for the foreseeable future. After all, the administrative cost spent on recouping the up to $300 million in accidental debts would have been higher than the value of the sums owed. They've really overspent the budget on this one. The government acknowledged the administrative cost of chasing small debts often cost more than the debt itself, making the process uneconomical. There it is. There's the truth of the matter. Seems the key to securing empathy in the year of our budget, 2025, is to be economically unviable. Not morality, not justice, not empathy. Just being too fucking expensive to bully poor people anymore. Well, not all poor people, but the really poor people. And here I thought being economically unviable was only for people being denied bank loans. No, no, no. It seems it also is for governments who don't want to deal with your shit anymore. Which means, finally, the poor have achieved equality with big corporations. Well, if not quite equality, at least they're standing on similar ground. You know, they're in like third place compared to big corporations' first place. Because if you're rich, you don't pay taxes because it's too hard. And if you're poor, you might not pay debts because it's too expensive to bully you. We'll have to call that equality for now. You know, we really are the lucky country. This is the dream, right? A united nation. Not by fairness or justice, but by being uneconomical. Smells like victory. Smells like joy. Welcome to Australia, where compassion is means tested and cruelty is fully funded, until the next election at least. Though it brings into question the continued existence of the Liberal Party. As a major political party, they haven't been economically viable for over a decade. The Greens have introduced legislation to impose recommendations outstanding from the Royal Commission, such as big-ticket items like reinstating the 6-year limit on recovery of debts, establishing a duty of care for the Department of Social Services that prioritises the needs of Social Security recipients while administering the law, restricting the kinds of decisions which can be made or automated without human oversight, and better protections for people experiencing hardship from receiving compliance notices. And some of the more fun ones, but don't hold your breath for some of these more fun ones. Things like base levels of respect and dignity, raising the level of pay to something livable, reducing call centre wait times to less than the gestation period of the average elephant, and payments delivered in actual money instead of whatever expired monopoly money they have sitting around in Treasury. But again, these are just the nice to haves. We're not anticipating any movement on any of these. Now, all this being said, the government is also contemplating forgiving up to $1 billion worth of debts instead of letting the Department of Social Services pursue them, despite the court ruling the debts could be recalculated and recouped. They went on to say that if everything goes well, they can use this as an excuse to continue to fail to pursue businesses who extorted the JobKeeper system during COVID. Yeah, Harvey Norman, I haven't forgotten about what you did, you doll-bludging fucker, you cushion-hoarding welfare vampire. They have, however, already decided that pursuing the back taxes of major corporations like Google and News Corp is not economically viable. Which makes sense because apparently in Australia, trickle-down economics actually refers to the government trickling debt notices down onto the unemployed. Because you know their motto, 1 in 3 big corporations are allowed to get away with paying no tax as long as we're relentlessly pursuing the poor. Now, despite their relentless pursuit of stripping the poorest in society of every dollar they possess, you might be surprised to learn that the government will pay a further $475 million to robo-debt victims as part of the class action settlement. This will bring the total amount to $548.5 million, with a total of $60 million set aside to administer the settlement scheme and up to $13.5 million to go to Gordon Legal to cover their legal costs. Now, don't get too excited. Though the settlement is still subject to approval from the federal court, and even though the Attorney General, Michelle Rowland, said settling the claim shows the government is doing the right thing, even if it is approved because there are so many victims of robo-debt, it'll equate to about roughly $1,000 per person, and that's assuming they don't put restrictions or like tabulations on it that might mean that some people get less in order for other people to get more. So congratulations! After years of harassment, fear, and in some cases actual tragedy, you get a slightly better microwave! If you're lucky. Otherwise, you might get slightly less than that. Yay! I mean, it is better than what they normally get from the government, which is a false apology, a non-promise to do better, a vague commitment about the future, the privilege of being rolled out as the official political cudgel that will be used to beat the opposition with until the next election, or until a bigger, more opportunistic photo opportunity-worthy disaster happens as a result of a political party that isn't them. So how fun for us. It's nice to be noticed. It's nice to be noticed. But it fundamentally overlooks the one thing that we have wanted from this whole experience. The exposure and punishment of the supervillain group known only as the Robo-Debt 6. Yeah, that shadowy cabal of bureaucratic Bond villains who dreamt up a system where Excel spreadsheets could cosplay as Judge Dredd. Settling the case allows the current government to draw a line under a scandal that plagued its predecessors. And there will be no legal finding on whether public servants knowingly acted unlawfully. They did. They undoubtedly did. But we won't get to know precisely what kind of legal culpability the alleged wrongdoers may have held. We don't get to see them go to court. We don't get to see them dragged before the world and have their name slung through the mud and accused of things that they may or may not have done. They call it justice. The case has one final frontier, I suppose. The knack. Fuck. The knack? The knack is our Obi-Wan Kenobi? Fuck! Yeah, the same knack that was run by Paul Brereton, who failed to make all the necessary steps to fully recuse himself from the decision-making process because of a possible conflict of interest. That knack, that very same knack, they're our only hope. Because nothing screams independent integrity watchdog quite like the phrase, sorry, can't investigate my mate Dave. We went to the same uni and he still owes me a pint. Because if there's one thing I've learned doing this podcast, it's that justice stops the moment that someone says, yeah, but he's my friend. I would happily, as I'm sure many others would, happily give up my share of this settlement to see the names of the Robo-Debt 6 from the sealed section that was not made public, and to see them come to proper justice. But they have to come to actual proper justice. To date, no senior public servants have been terminated, let alone convicted over robo-debt. It's been a fraught process to get to this point, and there's been no public time frame for the conclusion of its investigation. Its proceedings are only typically held in private to avoid prejudicing any potential future legal action. While the NAT can recommend criminal charges, it cannot prosecute individuals itself. At this point, I'm not giving up the one thing that I'm likely to get from this whole robo-debt bullshit for no reason. That $1,000, I'll take it, but only because there's a distinct lack of justice flowing in the direction of the government. And given the NAC already dropped the ball once due to the power of undisclosed friendships, I don't want these guys to be the last opportunity that I have for justice.